Hello and welcome to creatingforgrace.com. Today we are going to make this triple layer stamped card. We're going to use the Bunch of Blossoms stamp set. It is being carried over. The item number is 141573. The sentiment we're going to use is grateful for a friend like you. And then the stamps that we're going to use for the triple layer stamping are the three biggest petals, and those are going to be done in Soft Sky, Marina Mist, and Dapper Denim. The two smaller leaves, and this one is going to be Pear Pizzazz, and the outline shape is going to be Old Olive. The inside center of the flower is going to be Crushed Curry, and there's some little dots that go on the inside, which is this guy. It's going to be done in Dapper Denim, and the sentiment is also going to be done in Dapper Denim. So I'm going to set the stamp set aside. We have all the parts that we need ready to go. I haven't attached the layers yet, but I wanted to show you one of the questions I get asked the most is how you create a card like this, having the layers look really even. And so I'm going to give you measurements. I've pre-cut them, but I'm going to show you how they're layered. We start with an A2 card size and very vanilla. When it's folded in half, the measurements are 5.5 by 4 1/4. Your next layer is a Designer Series paper layer. And that one is cut at 5.5 by 4 1/4, and it's going to lay exactly right on top of this layer. It's the same size. The next stamped layer is done at 5 1/4 by 4 inches. We have another Designer Series paper layer at 4.5 inches by 3 1/4 inches. The next stamped layer is 4 1/4 inches by 3 inches. Designer Series paper layer at 3.5 inches by 2 1/4 inches. And the inside stamped image at 3 1/4 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to set these aside until we assemble them. And these are the three layers that we're actually going to be doing the stamping on. We used to carry a temporary adhesive, and so I'm going to use a little dot of that right in the center. A lot of the friends that stamp actually use Stampin' Up's snail adhesive, and they just put a tiny dab in the center. And then when you go to remove them, they lift it and just kind of twist. And that way, if you don't have the dado, that's something that works really well for them. Again, a little dot. And I am taking care to center these as well as possible all the way around. And so kind of having an even border. So when you layer the Designer Series paper in between, you want to have even frames, and your flowers and things will be all lined up where they're supposed to be. So anytime I'm using some clear photopolymer stamp, it doesn't have any of the rubber backing for give. And so to get a really crisp stamp image, I like to use the Stampin' Up foam pad. And because I'm going to be stamping off the paper, I always put a piece of scratch paper over the top of it. I'm going to put this right onto here, and I just kind of give myself an idea of where my borders are. And I'm going to start with the darkest color. Actually, think of this. You can go either way, and I think for this one I'm actually going to go lightest to darkest. So we're going to start with the Soft Sky, and we're going to ink that up and turn my petals around, and you can tell exactly where they're going to be. And don't worry if you miss a little bit. Remember, you have a Designer Series paper layer that's going to be covering that up. And so you do want to have 5 petals per card, and you're going to end up with a tiny bit of an opening in the center. So they will overlap a little bit, not a ton, just like that. And then your final one up in the center. This is probably the hardest layer to line up because you're really trying to just kind of get everything where you need it to be. And it's really a matter of kind of visualizing the flower and what the finished components are going to look like. And then on the very corner, we really only had a couple of the leaves. So the next color that we're going to use is going to be the Marina Mist. And you can tell this is a center flower. I'll put the ink on this side so I'm not going across my project every time. If you look at it, it's got notches taken out of it. The lightest color actually has almost nothing. It's almost a solid color. And then the outline, you can tell, just has the outline edges. And that's when I know is my lightest, medium, and dark. And so we're going to do the Marina Mist. And you're really wanting to layer those, but you're going to have a watercolored look to these, so it doesn't have to be exact. You want it to have some flow. So this part really needs to not be stressful. And remember, these don't line up exact because there's some empty spaces in here. So doing the centers, the medium color, again this is Marina Mist, and I did notice I got a little dab of color there, so what we'll probably end up doing is placing a leaf there. My philosophy is just about everything is fixable. Sometimes things aren't and you have to start over, but most of the time anything can be fixed. We're done with the Marina Mist for now. We're going to set that aside. And this is the Dapper Denim. It's our darkest blue. I'm going to use this for the outline. Ink that up. Again, going off the paper. And really wanting to kind of line up our outlines. But remembering, this is meant to have a watercolored look, so don't be hard on yourself about getting this part exact. It's gonna look beautiful when you're done. One of the things that I noticed makes it easy with the photopolymer stamps, besides having the foam pad underneath to give you a crisper image, it helps if you don't really rock the stamps. If you use even pressure, straight down and straight back up, that makes it much, much cleaner stamped image. Okay, so that's it for that layer of the blue. We're going to close up the Dapper Denim. We're going to add our leaves. And so we talked about having one to cover up. And I always like to have a couple of them. Kind of side by side. And I think that's good. We'll set aside our Pear Pizzazz, and then our darker border is going to be done in the Old Olive. So our stamping is totally done on this, and because we've used the dado, they come apart very, very easily. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm actually going to attach my layers of the stamped images onto the layers of designer series paper. Oh, almost forgot. We need to do the centers of our flowers. So we have the crushed curry right here, and there's only a couple of those, and I think we probably could have done them without taking things apart. And then the centers of the flowers were the dapper denim and the little spots. So very lightly add some little dots here. There we go. Now our flowers are complete. So setting the foam pad aside. Now we can take this apart, and we'll go ahead and attach our layers. So I'm going to take this over and use our Stampin' Up! Snail adhesive, and I'm going to take each of our stamped layers and put it on the next biggest designer series paper. So just really giving it an even border all the way around. You don't really have to worry about orientation right now, because no matter how you put it, it's going to end up being correct, as long as you have the paper centered on there. There's your second layer, and now we are doing our third and final layer. I've pre-cut some ribbon for our bow, which is going to make it very easy. This first layer is going to go underneath, and it's kind of deciding where you are going to place your ribbon at. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first two layers. You can go totally around the first layer and have it just not go over the second two, but I think I'm going to have the ribbon go over the first two layers and not on the third one. So basically what you're trying to do is line up this as evenly as possible all the way around, with your borders. And so that's what we want to do. So before we attach this to the base, we're actually going to add adhesive. And I find this is the easiest way to attach ribbon. If I add adhesive all the way around the back, just like that, and then I'm kind of deciding, okay, so my flower is going to set just about there. Where would I want my ribbon to cross? Do I want it up high? Do I want it here? So I'm thinking about here is a good position for that ribbon. So I'm going to take this layer off, and I'm going to wrap the ends around. And we already had adhesive on the back, so it's going to hold it exactly where I need it. I'm going to add a little adhesive right on top of that. This, remember, was cut exactly the size of the base, so that's going to fit right on top of there with the ribbon wrapped around. And then I'm going to add adhesive to this top layer. Again, centering your image exactly to the best of your ability, right where you would need that. This is the little ribbon that I had for the knot, and I think what we're going to do, I think we're going to add it to this side this time. And I had to laugh, and this is one of those things that I always talk about is crafting has to be a fluid thing happening, because things change, you make mistakes, and I noticed I did not leave myself enough room to actually do the sentiment that I chose right here because I had added some leaves and had this flower in further. So what I'm going to do is do a very small for you, but for the sake of video, we don't need to spend the time doing that. What I'm going to show you is just the ribbon. I always finish it off making my ends pretty, just like that. And then what I will do is add a small stamped for you. So this was the original that we did, and this is the stamped version. And I always tell people, make sure to make your envelopes pretty. So if you flip over to the back, this is the envelope that I had before. I stamped a flower again and some of the petals, and that was it. I hope this helped in terms of measurements. Everything will be on my blog. It's scheduled to be posted on May 15th, and that's it. Happy creating, and thank you so much for stopping by.